1. Detachment is the root of masculine but the core of inner strength lies the ability to detach not as an act of avoidance, but as a conscious discipline. Detachment is often misunderstood. It's not about becoming emotionally distant or unavailable. It's not about turning cold or pretending not to care. In reality, detachment is a deeply thoughtful and powerful skill. It's the quiet ability to hold space between your emotions and your actions, to pause before reacting, and to choose your path with clarity. As a man, your sense of calm and control is one of your greatest assets. The modern world often pulls your attention in many directions: relationships, social expectations, and endless distractions. But when you detach, you step back from this noise and create space to reconnect with yourself. This is where your strength begins to grow. You start to recognize what truly matters, and more importantly, what doesn't deserve your energy. Detachment is not about giving up on people or goals. It's about letting go of the need for things to always go your way. It's about being okay with outcomes you cannot control. You do your part, you show up, stay grounded in your values, and act with intention. But then you let go of the result. This balance between effort and surrender is what builds resilience. In relationships, this kind of detachment helps you stay centered. You no longer depend on someone else's attention or approval to feel valuable. You give love, care, and attention from a place of stability, not from need. This calm, measured presence is what truly creates respect. You don't chase, you don't beg, and you don't react emotionally to every shift in behavior. You stay grounded, and that quiet confidence speaks volumes. Detachment is not disconnection, it's control. It's the ability to feel emotions without being overwhelmed by them. When you embody this mindset, you begin to operate from a position of clarity and strength. And from this foundation, you can lead yourself through challenges, relationships, and personal growth with a calm, steady hand. That's the essence of masculine power, not control over others, but control over self. 2. Focused detachment is not coldness, it's control. Focused detachment is often mistaken for emotional coldness or apathy. But the truth is, it's not about pushing people away or pretending you don't care. It's about being intentional with how you respond to the world. It's about maintaining your internal stability, no matter what's happening around you. Being emotionally available and caring does not mean you must always be reactive. Focused detachment gives you the ability to pause, observe, and choose a calm response instead of being driven by impulse. You aren't cutting off emotions, you're simply managing them wisely. You allow yourself to feel, but you don't allow those feelings to take control of your actions or identity. This kind of control is not about dominance or manipulation, it's about discipline. It's choosing where your energy goes, who gets your time, and how much space you give to certain thoughts. When a situation becomes challenging, whether in a relationship, at work, or within your own thoughts, focused detachment allows you to respond with clarity rather than confusion or anxiety. People often think that caring deeply means being emotionally entangled, but when your sense of peace is tied to someone else's behavior, you lose balance. Focused detachment helps restore that balance. It allows you to care from a healthy distance where your self-worth remains intact, even if the situation around you becomes uncertain. In relationships, this doesn't mean shutting yourself off or becoming robotic. It means you show up fully, but without losing yourself. You're present, but not dependent. You're connected, but still grounded in your values. That's the strength behind focused detachment. It keeps you centered in a world that constantly tries to pull you in different directions. In a way, it's a quiet form of leadership. You lead yourself first. You manage your emotions, not by suppressing them, but by observing and channeling them thoughtfully. And when you do this consistently, you begin to carry a calm presence that others notice. It builds respect, trust, and influence, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. Focused detachment isn't about becoming less human. It's about becoming more intentional, more centered, and ultimately, more in control of your life. 3. Refuse to let others dictate your value. One of the most important realizations in life is this: your value does not come from others, it comes from within. Yet many people, without even noticing, begin to base their self-worth on how others treat them, talk about them, or perceive them. This can lead to a fragile sense of identity, one that constantly shifts depending on external opinions. Focused detachment helps you step away from this pattern. When you allow others to define your worth, you're giving away your power. You become overly sensitive to rejection, praise, silence, or criticism. A compliment makes you feel validated. A lack of attention makes you feel invisible. This constant emotional fluctuation takes a toll on your peace of mind. True inner strength begins when you no longer look to others to confirm your worth. You stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking, "Am I living in alignment with who I want to be?" You begin to evaluate yourself based on your principles, your consistency, and your personal growth, not on temporary reactions from the outside world. This mindset doesn't mean you ignore feedback or become arrogant. It simply means you become selective. You understand whose opinions matter and whose don't. You listen to constructive input, but you no longer live your life trying to meet someone else's expectations, especially when those expectations compromise your values or peace. In relationships, this shift is especially powerful. You stop chasing validation from a partner. You stop trying to prove your worth through effort, gifts, or emotional sacrifice. Instead, you bring your full self to the table, calm, present, and grounded. And if that's not enough for someone, you're willing to walk away, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. When you detach from the need to be constantly approved, you create a stable foundation inside yourself. You become harder to manipulate, less reactive, and more at peace with who you are. That kind of steadiness is rare, and it's what makes you stand out in the long run, not by seeking attention, but by remaining centered, consistent, and quietly strong. 4. Detach from anything that doesn't serve you. One of the most mature decisions you can make in life is to walk away from what no longer supports your well-being, growth, or peace. Whether it's a relationship, a job, a habit, or even a way of thinking. If it's not adding value to your life, it's silently taking something from you. Detachment is the skill that gives you the strength to let go, not with anger, but with clarity. There's a common tendency to hold on to things simply because they're familiar. People stay in relationships out of habit, remain in jobs that drain them, or repeat patterns that limit them because letting go feels uncomfortable. But comfort is not always the same as alignment. Just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. Detachment teaches you to evaluate everything in your life with honesty. Ask yourself, is this person, place, or behavior helping me move forward? Does this align with my values, goals, and the life I want to build? If the answer is no, then holding on will only keep you stuck. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. It means you're evolving. It means you're choosing growth over stagnation. Some situations are only meant to be part of your journey for a season, not forever. Detachment helps you accept this without guilt. This principle also applies to emotional investments. If you're constantly drained by someone's presence, or if you're compromising your peace to maintain a connection, it's time to reflect. True connection should nourish you, not exhaust you. And the moment you realize something is costing you more than it's giving you, detachment becomes the path to freedom. Choosing to detach doesn't make you cold or selfish. It makes you responsible. You're responsible for your own well-being, your time, your energy. And when you protect those resources, you become stronger, more present, and more available for the things and people who truly matter. In the end, life is too short to carry what's weighing you down. Detachment isn't about turning away from life, it's about clearing space so that something better can take its place, something more in line with who you're becoming. 5. Invest time and energy wisely. Time and energy are two of your most limited and valuable resources. Unlike money or possessions, once they're spent, they cannot be regained. And yet, many people give them away freely to distractions, meaningless pursuits, or people who don't respect their presence. Detachment helps you protect these resources by teaching you to be more intentional with where they go. Every decision you make is an investment. The time you spend worrying, the energy you spend chasing someone's attention, or the hours lost in habits that bring no return, all of these are choices that come with a cost. When you practice focused detachment, you begin to recognize the value of what you're giving away, and you start making better choices about what you invest in. This doesn't mean you become rigid or transactional. It means you learn to prioritize. You ask better questions. Is this helping me grow? Does this align with my purpose? Is this relationship built on mutual respect? When the answer is no, you no longer feel the need to continue just to avoid discomfort or to please others. In your relationships, this shift becomes especially important. When you invest too much energy into someone who isn't reciprocating or appreciating your efforts, you begin to feel drained. Over time, that imbalance leads to frustration, resentment, and emotional fatigue. Detachment teaches you to pause, to reassess, and to redirect your energy where it will be respected and returned. This also applies to how you spend your time daily. Are your routines aligned with your long-term goals? Are you growing mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? Or are you stuck in cycles of mindless consumption, short-term gratification, or unproductive distractions? Focused detachment brings your attention back to what matters: your purpose, your health, your growth. A man who understands the value of his time becomes more disciplined. He doesn't overextend himself. He doesn't chase things or people that pull him off course. He remains grounded in his priorities. And because of this, he moves through life with greater clarity and peace. The way you spend your time and energy is a reflection of how much you value yourself. When you invest wisely, you not only become more productive, you become more powerful, more centered, and more capable of building the life you truly want. 6. Free yourself from external validation. One of the most liberating steps in personal growth is freeing yourself from the need for external validation. Many people, often without realizing it, live their lives based on how others perceive them. They seek approval through compliments, attention, likes, or emotional responses. The sense of self shifts depending on how others react, but this constant seeking creates instability and prevents true peace. Detachment teaches you to step back from that cycle. It's not about becoming indifferent to others. It's about learning that your worth is not dependent on how people treat you, what they think of you, or whether they recognize your efforts. When you no longer need outside affirmation to feel confident, you reclaim control over your identity. Relying on external validation is risky because it puts your emotional state in someone else's hands. If they praise you, you feel good. If they criticize you or ignore you, your mood sinks. Your confidence rises and falls like a wave, controlled by forces outside yourself. Over time, this can erode your sense of self and make you overly reactive. But when you develop inner validation, when you start valuing your efforts, your growth, and your quiet discipline, you become more stable. You stop chasing compliments, and instead, you begin to recognize your own progress. You look inward for reassurance, and as a result, you become less dependent on external feedback. This doesn't mean you shut yourself off from others. It means you listen, but you don't build your identity around their opinions. You accept praise humbly and criticism thoughtfully, but neither defines you. You know who you are. You're not performing for approval. You're simply living in alignment with your values. In relationships, this shift changes everything. You stop trying to impress. You stop fearing disconnection. You become more present, more authentic, and more grounded. Ironically, this self-assuredness often draws others to you because it's rare. Most people are still searching for approval. When you aren't, you stand out, not loudly, but quietly and confidently. Validation should be an internal process, not a public performance. When you no longer need to be seen, heard, or validated to feel worthy, you become free to live, free to grow, and free to lead your life on your own terms. 7. Stop needing her attention to feel whole. One of the quietest traps many men fall into is tying their emotional well-being to a woman's attention. Her messages, her compliments, her presence all begin to act like emotional fuel. And when that attention fades or disappears, so does their sense of worth. But real strength begins the moment you recognize this pattern and choose to break it. Needing someone's attention to feel complete places your peace in a fragile position. You become reactive. If she replies, you feel confident. If she pulls away, your thoughts spiral. Your day becomes a reflection of her behavior, not of your own purpose. This dependency doesn't just hurt your confidence, it limits your growth. Detachment allows you to step back from that need. It teaches you to center your identity around your own values, goals, and inner peace, not around whether or not someone chooses to notice you. When you're grounded in who you are, you don't crumble when someone else withdraws. You remain steady because your stability isn't based on external interaction. It's important to care, to love, and to be open. But there's a difference between being emotionally available and being emotionally dependent. The first is healthy, it reflects connection. The second is draining, it reflects insecurity. Focused detachment helps you maintain connection without losing yourself in it. When you no longer need her attention to feel worthy, you begin to show up differently. You become less reactive, more centered. You no longer seek to simply live with purpose. You're no longer waiting for her to respond, you're focused on your own path. And this shift creates a quiet confidence that others notice. Ironically, when you stop needing her attention, she becomes more likely to give it because you're no longer pulling from her. You're standing on your own. And in a world full of men trying to prove themselves, a man who feels whole on his own becomes rare. Being whole doesn't mean being distant. It means being strong. It means bringing your full self to the table, not to earn affection, but to share presence. When you stop needing her attention to feel complete, you regain your balance. And from that place, you can build relationships that are healthy, respectful, and truly fulfilling. 8. Be the man who stands out by standing alone. In a world where many people follow trends, seek validation, and avoid discomfort, the man who can stand alone becomes both rare and respected. He doesn't need to draw attention to himself. He doesn't need constant reassurance. His presence speaks through quiet confidence, not performance. This ability to stand alone without fear sets him apart. Standing alone doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means developing the ability to think for yourself, make decisions from your own principles, and remain grounded even when others disagree or walk away. When your sense of identity comes from within, you're no longer pressured to fit into someone else's expectations. This kind of inner strength takes time to build. It starts by knowing who you are, what you value, what you tolerate, and what you refuse to compromise. It means you can enjoy company without depending on it. You can engage in relationships without losing yourself in them. And most importantly, you can walk away from any situation that no longer aligns with your integrity. In relationships, this ability becomes especially powerful. While many men mold themselves to fit what they think a woman wants, the man who remains true to himself creates a very different dynamic. He isn't trying to win approval, he's simply showing up as he is. This honesty and self-assurance naturally draw respect. People notice when you don't need their validation. They notice when you carry yourself with purpose, when you don't over-explain, and when you're comfortable in silence. Standing alone doesn't mean you reject connection, it means you've built a foundation strong enough that you don't collapse without it. 9. Detachment is not indifference, it's strengthened. Carrying detachment is often misunderstood. Many assume it means becoming emotionally distant, uncaring, or closed off from others. But real detachment isn't about avoiding emotion, it's about managing it from a place of clarity and strength. It's not the absence of care, but the presence of self-control. When you detach in a healthy way, you don't stop caring. You simply stop attaching your sense of self to outcomes you cannot control. You give your best, you show up fully, but you no longer measure your worth by how others respond. This gives your care more depth, not less, because you are no longer driven by fear, insecurity, or need. In relationships, this kind of detachment is essential. It allows you to love someone deeply without becoming dependent on them. You can support, give, and connect without losing your identity in the process. This creates a more stable, mature connection. You care from a place of abundance, not from a place of lack. Indifference, on the other hand, means you are closed off. You avoid feeling, avoid effort, and avoid emotional investment. It creates distance and disconnect. But detachment builds boundaries without shutting doors. It protects your energy, not by cutting people off, but by being mindful of how much you give and why. When you care from strength, you stop trying to control the other person. You no longer act out of fear of losing them. You accept that they are free to choose, and so are you. This freedom gives your love or attention real meaning because it's not forced and it's not needy. It's given willingly and without expectation. This shift changes the energy you bring into every interaction. You're not overly reactive, not constantly seeking affirmation. You become a calm presence. You listen more. You hold space better. And because you're no longer emotionally entangled in outcomes, you make better choices. You don't stay out of guilt or fear. You stay because it aligns with your values. True caring doesn't require constant attachment. In fact, when you learn to care from a place of detachment, your presence becomes more peaceful, your intentions become clearer, and your relationships become more grounded. Detachment is not weakness, it's wisdom. And when paired with care, it creates a balanced strength few ever master. Detachment plays a key role in this process. It helps you let go of the need to be liked, chosen, or praised. It helps you shift from chasing acceptance to embodying calm presence, and over time, this presence becomes your strength. The man who stands alone isn't trying to prove anything. He's simply focused on becoming better each day for himself, not for others. And because he doesn't follow the crowd, he naturally rises above it, not through arrogance, but through quiet discipline. When you can stand alone, you never feel lost. You always know your direction, even when the world around you, DOESN, single quotes T.10. Maintain connection without losing identity. Healthy connection does not require self. Yet many people, especially in romantic relationships, slowly begin to lose their sense of self. They compromise their values, adjust their personality, and reshape their routines just to maintain closeness. What starts as love can quietly turn into dependency. That's where detachment becomes necessary, not to end the connection, but to protect your identity within it. Detachment teaches you that you don't have to disappear to be loved. You don't have to silence your needs or shrink your vision to keep someone's attention. True connection is built on mutual respect, and that begins with staying rooted in who you are, regardless of who you're with. Losing yourself in a relationship often happens gradually. You start saying yes to things you don't believe in. You avoid conflict to keep the peace. You change your tone, your habits, even your goals, hoping it will make the other person stay. But in doing so, you slowly drift from your own values. The cost is subtle, but real. A man who practices focused detachment keeps this in check. He knows how to give without surrendering his self-respect. He knows how to support without sacrificing his principles. He remains present, caring, and involved, but he also remains firm in who he is. This kind of inner stability is rare. Most relationships are filled with imbalance where one person leads and the other follows. But when both people are rooted in their individual identities, the relationship becomes more honest. You aren't trying to impress or control each other. You're simply choosing to walk together, freely, respectfully, and without fear. Maintaining your identity also helps you stay emotionally grounded. You don't take things personally. You don't overreact when things shift, because you've never made the relationship the center of your self-worth. You enjoy the connection, but you don't rely on it to define you. This approach doesn't weaken the bond, it strengthens it, because the healthiest relationships are made up of two whole individuals, not two incomplete halves looking to be completed. When you maintain your identity, you bring something real, strong, and stable to the relationship. Detachment allows you to be connected, not consumed, and in that balance, you find the peace and strength needed to love well without losing yourself. 11. Avoid extremes. Find the balanced middle in relationships. As in life, the greatest strength often lies in balance. One of the most common challenges men face is the pull toward emotional extremes. Either they give too much, losing themselves in the process, or they shut down completely, convincing themselves that detachment means indifference. But real power is found in the middle path, a place where you care but don't cling, where you remain open but not dependent. Focused detachment is about mastering this balance. It teaches you that you don't need to go to either extreme to protect yourself. You don't need to overinvest to prove your worth, and you don't need to withdraw completely to avoid pain. Instead, you can remain centered, clear in your values, calm in your emotions, and steady in your presence. Giving too much often comes from fear of losing someone, fear of not being enough, fear of being alone. So you try harder, you give more than you receive. You tolerate things that don't sit right with you, and slowly, you compromise your identity. On the other hand, when hurt or disappointment comes, the reaction can swing the other way, down, building walls, and choosing disconnection over vulnerability. Neither path leads to growth. One leads to burnout, the other to isolation. The middle path is different. It says, I will give, but not at the cost of my peace. I will care, but not at the cost of my dignity. I will stay open, but only if it aligns with my values. This level of emotional discipline doesn't come overnight. It's built through self-awareness, reflection, and a commitment to staying grounded. You start to recognize the signs when you're leaning too far in either direction. You begin to pause, reassess, and realign with your core. When you find this balance, you become far more effective in relationships. You don't overwhelm others with neediness, nor do you push them away with emotional distance. You listen with presence. You speak with intention. You act from strength, not reaction. Avoiding extremes isn't about being neutral, it's about being stable. It's about holding space for both connection and independence, care and clarity, love and limits. This middle ground is where real confidence lives. Not loud, not passive, just steady. And that steadiness is what makes you truly powerful. Point 12. Send a message. I am enough. One of the most powerful things you can communicate to the world without ever saying a word is this simple message: I am enough. It's not arrogance, it's not pride. It's a quiet inner certainty that says, I do not need to be validated, chosen, or praised to feel whole. This mindset is at the core of focused detachment. When you carry the belief that you are enough as you are, everything changes. You stop overextending yourself in relationships. You stop proving your worth through excessive effort or emotional overexposure. You stop chasing people who are inconsistent or indifferent. You begin to move differently, calmer, more grounded, and with a quiet clarity. This kind of self-assurance doesn't come from external accomplishments or attention. It comes from consistent alignment with your values. It comes from keeping promises to yourself, working toward your goals, and living with integrity. When you know who you are and where you stand, you no longer need someone else to affirm your worth. Sending this message, I am enough, is not about saying it out loud. It's shown in your actions. It's shown in your posture, in how you respond to disrespect, in how you walk away from what doesn't serve you. It's seen in your ability to enjoy your own company, to create your own peace, and to stand still in moments when others feel the need to chase. In romantic dynamics, this presence becomes magnetic. When a man no longer needs attention to feel valuable, it changes how others perceive him. He's no longer trying to impress, he's simply being. And that quiet confidence often speaks louder than any performance or display. But more importantly, it's not about how others see you, it's about how you see yourself. When you believe you are enough, you stop living in reaction to others. You no longer shrink when rejected or swell when praised. You remain steady because your self-worth is not up for negotiation. This mindset isn't built overnight. It takes inner work, self-reflection, and emotional discipline. But once you embody it, you become rooted in something unshakable. I am enough isn't just a statement, it's a way of living. And when you live from that place, the right people are drawn to you not for what you can offer, but for who you truly are. 13. Stand alone. Stand strong. One of the clearest signs of inner strength is the ability to stand alone without feeling incomplete. In a world that constantly pressures people to seek companionship, approval, and group identity, the man who stands firm in solitude sets himself apart not with pride, but with quiet strength. Standing alone is not about isolation, it's about knowing that your stability doesn't depend on who shows up or who leaves. When you're able to enjoy your own company, pursue your path with clarity, and hold your values regardless of outside influence, you become resilient in a way few ever experience. Most men are conditioned to believe that their value is determined by how many people want them, how many friends surround them, or how much attention they receive. But the Stoic man knows that true power begins where need ends. When you stop needing constant interaction, you reclaim your peace. You begin to think clearly, act with intention, and move with confidence, not because you are being watched, but because it's the right thing to do. This kind of detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you composed. It doesn't mean you reject people, it means you don't depend on them for your sense of identity. The man who can walk alone is the man who will never be manipulated by the fear of being left behind. In relationships, this strength is especially important. If you're afraid of losing someone, you'll compromise your values to keep them. But when you're strong enough to walk away from anything that insults your peace or disrespects your standards, you become the kind of man others respect instinctively. Standing alone doesn't mean you're lonely, it means you're full of purpose, full of self-respect, and full of direction. You welcome connection, but you don't depend on it. You offer presence, not desperation. Let others chase comfort in crowds. You choose the path of self-mastery. You train your mind, discipline your habits, and build your life brick by brick. You don't stand alone because you must, you stand alone because you can. And from that place of strength, you become the kind of man who attracts the right people without effort, because people are naturally drawn to those who are whole within themselves. 14. Attract by being whole, not by chasing. True attraction doesn't come from pursuit, it comes from presence. In relationships, many men fall into the trap of constantly chasing, trying to prove themselves worthy of attention, affection, or validation. But the reality is simple. The more you chase, the more you signal that you lack something. And the more complete you are within yourself, the more others are drawn to you naturally. This is the paradox. When you stop trying to be chosen, you become someone worth choosing. That shift in energy from need to self-respect is what makes all the difference. Being whole means you're not looking for someone to fill a gap in your life. You're not searching for someone to make you feel important, loved, or valuable. Instead, you already know your worth. You're focused on your purpose, your growth, and your peace. When a woman enters your life, she complements it, but she doesn't define it. Many men think attraction is about saying the right things or constantly proving value. But real attraction is silent, it's felt, not forced. It's the quiet confidence of a man who knows who he is and isn't afraid to walk away if something doesn't align with his standards. When you live with intention, work on your goals, stay disciplined, and remain emotionally grounded, you radiate something rare: inner stability. That's what people truly find magnetic, not your words, but your calm, not your efforts to impress, but your ability to remain centered regardless of who comes or goes. Chasing puts the other person on a pedestal. It makes you operate from lack, and people can sense that energy. It feels desperate, it repels rather than attracts. But when you stop chasing and start living from a place of fullness, everything shifts. You begin to draw in people who respect your energy, your presence, and your standards. So stop thinking about how to impress others. Instead, ask, am I proud of the man I am becoming? Am I building a life that reflects my values, purpose, and discipline? Because when the answer is yes, the right people will see it and they'll want to be part of it. You don't need to run after what's meant for you. Just keep becoming the man you were meant to be. Point 15. Focused detachment is a way of life. Focused detachment is not just a strategy, it's a lifestyle. It's a mindset that transforms how you think, how you relate, and how you live. This isn't about indifference or emotional coldness. It's about clarity. It's about choosing where your attention, energy, and emotions go, instead of giving them away to situations or people who don't align with your values. In every area of life, whether in relationships, career, or personal development, there comes a time when you have to step back and ask, is this serving me? Is this helping me grow? Or is it holding me back? Focused detachment gives you the courage to answer that question honestly and accordingly. It means not attaching your identity to things outside your control, not clinging to outcomes, people, or praise. Because when your peace depends on external circumstances, you will always be at their mercy. But when you learn to detach with focus and discipline, you take your power back. You begin to live by intention, not reaction. This mindset teaches you to be calm when others are chaotic, patient when things feel uncertain, and composed when emotions run high. You stop needing others to understand you. You stop explaining yourself just to be liked. You stop trying to control what others think of you. Instead, you focus inward on your discipline, your purpose, your growth. Detachment doesn't mean isolation. It means emotional independence. It means giving yourself permission to feel without becoming controlled by those feelings. You can care, but still walk away. You can love, but still protect your peace. You can connect, but still hold your boundaries. When focused detachment becomes your way of life, you naturally attract people and opportunities that respect your presence. The noise fades, clarity rises, and you move with quiet strength. You stop chasing, you stop doubting, and you stop settling. Life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. This is the path of self-respect, of emotional mastery, of inner freedom. You're not here to beg for attention, to overextend for validation, or to trade your standards for temporary comfort. You're here to live fully, honestly, and with unwavering discipline. And when you do, you don't just live better, you become better. Every day, conclusion, own your silence. Own your power. At the core of every point we've explored lies one timeless truth. Your strength as a man begins the moment you learn to let go of what doesn't serve you emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. Focused detachment is the thread that weaves through every powerful transformation. It's the reason you rise after heartbreak, why you stay centered when others are reacting, and how you walk away not out of bitterness, but out of self. You've seen how detachment helps you stop chasing and start leading. You've learned that your silence speaks louder than your arguments. You've realized that being in control of your emotions makes you unshakable, and that being able to walk away makes you truly powerful. You've also seen how setting boundaries without drama commands more respect than trying to please everyone. This mindset is not about ignoring people or feelings. It's about refusing to lose yourself in them. It's about giving your energy to what matters and saving your peace for what's real. When you detach with focus, you no longer depend on someone else's presence to feel valuable. You stop explaining yourself. You stop compromising your values. You start honoring your time, your goals, and your own reflection in the mirror. The world will always test your patience, your purpose, and your peace. But how you respond calmly, intentionally, and with detachment will define your identity. And once you make this shift from reaction to reflection, from chasing to choosing, from needing to being you, become unstoppable. You'll notice women respond differently, not because you're trying to manipulate outcomes, but because you're standing in quiet, grounded truth. You're no longer trying to win anyone over. You're simply being a man who knows his worth, lives by principle, and walks with purpose. This is focused detachment. It's not a tactic. It's a transformation. Live it fully. Embody it completely. And remember, the moment you stop begging for love, attention, or approval is the moment you start receiving respect. Stay calm, stay grounded, and above all, stay focused.